we build a story brand for your business? After all, it's quite a shift in thinking that takes us from being the center of everything to someone else being the center of everything. Yeah, I know, right? It takes all the narcissism away. This allows us to bypass the kind of cognitive friction and unnecessarily calorie burn that our customers and potential clients will have, and allows us to communicate our value with absolute pinpoint clarity. That's what it's all about today. And it is based upon Donald Miller's Building a Story Brand. You can find out more about that at storybrand.com. All this content is based on his. I don't pretend this is anything to do with me, but it's all very much a process that I've used again and again and again in various ways over the years to get the best messaging I possibly can for myself, for my clients, for those I teach as well. So there's a bit of a cognitive crisis in marketing. There's a lot of filter. Our brain ignores a lot of stuff. You'd know it if you went to a website and saw some kind of banner that's coming up on the website. You've learned to ignore them. We learn to ignore radio ads, television ads, any billboards. We kind of filter everything out because it doesn't really aid our survival, because that's what we all come down to. We expend energy on the things that we see as something absolutely necessary for us to do. There is an energy cost to that. So if we've got complex messages constantly being thrown at us all the time, it drains calories from our system, which means the brain tends to avoid them. We don't really like doing the things that waste our energy. In fact, part of the reason why we have so many problems with obesity and overeating is because we're constantly trying to replenish the energy we're using on brain work. The way to work around this is by being simple, and being so simple to understand that buyers don't then disengage from you to find a competitor. We actually will do that. Often, if we don't find what we need within a second or two on a website, we will literally use up more energy, go back to Google and look for a competitor who has got a much more clear message so they can then use that instead of us. So the bit of a grunt test. Let's just say, 5 seconds, 3 questions, and having zero cognitive load. We go to a website, we look at what exactly that they offer us, and we do an immediate assessment of how will this make my life materially better. And then we look for, again, a very simple step to how can I get this? What do I need to do in order to purchase this? This is something we automatically, without even thinking, go through every time. What is in it for me? How will this make my life better? And how do I actually make this happen? Unfortunately, most websites are so tossed around with branding and design and complexity that they don't make that easy. What the offer is, how it makes the life better of the potential customer, and what they have to do next to make that happen. If you fail that grunt test, then what you do, you violate the caloric burn that people have in their brains of trying to use as little energy and time as possible to get something done, which means all that fancy design, all those fancy words, all that effort you've put into a website or into social media is completely lost because you don't have something which is conversion optimized. And for founders, this becomes a particularly hard thing to communicate because you're so wrapped up in your business. Your business is your baby. It's your idea. You tend to want to over explain everything, thinking that the world is as interested in the details as you are, when realistically, they just want to know, what's in it for me? How does this make my life better? And how do I make the purchase happen in this? And we make all those steps so difficult on our websites and our social media. So to make this something that's going to be a lot less confusing and use a lot less caloric burn in people's brains is we've got to understand that we're not the hero of this story. The customer is. We're just the guide. As businesses, we're the guide, not the hero. And the one desire that's there is to focus on one single overriding want that your customer or potential customer wants, because lots of different desires, lots of different options in there fractures the story. They can't see themselves in that story. So the story does need to be general enough so people can understand it, but also needs to be specific enough so the right person feels that they are part of that story. It also needs to have something in there that shows some kind of aspirational identity that they want to get to. That what is the transformed version of themselves that they want to become, whether that is assured, self-assured, educated, efficient, making more money, taking less time to do work, whatever that aspiration is, we need to mention that if we're going to really understand who the hero is. So what is the one thing they want? and what is the feeling they want at the end of it, who they want to be transformed into, and how will that make them feel. The next one is we define that problem down to the problem that every customer is fighting a villain, right? And we want to address all three levels of that villain. And the first one is the external, tangible, physical issue that they face every day. So that could be something like losing customers, not converting customers, losing staff to competitors, not being able to compete with competitors. Then we get to the internal. How does that make them feel? So it's usually they are frustrated by this. They're annoyed by this. They are clearly terrified that their business is going down the drain. What is the feeling they have with this? And if you don't know, ask them how they feel. It's usually going to be something like anxiety, fear, pain, sense of loss, a sense of failure. All those things tie into that. And then we look at the philosophical reason. This is one that a lot of founders and a lot of businesses will struggle with. What is the overarching why? Why does this situation feel so unjust and so unfair? And I would say that this is where you go, they've spent 25 years building this business only to find that they can't compete in 2026 because they don't have the digital skills to be able to keep up. That would be a philosophical reason. It's the why is this so unfair for this customer, for this person to be having to face that feeling because they've been infected by that external problem, the issue of losing staff, of not converting customers, of being too inefficient and too expensive and needing to save costs in some way. The third principle is you are the guide. You're not the hero of the story. I know we tend to, as business owners, place ourselves at the center of the story as the hero. We are not the hero. The guide is who you are. And there's two parts to a guide that makes sense that you need to get a sort of handle on. The first thing is the guide shows empathy. It explicitly shows that you understand where your potential customer is coming from, what their pain is, all that stuff. So you understand them. Now, usually you express that by saying, we've worked with hundreds of people just like you and understand that you have limited resources, you have limited capability, and you have limited time. Things like that, statements like that, that's an empathy statement. This is all going to make sense at the end when I give you a tool where you can put all this down and it forms this whole plan around you as well as a campaign plan to help you to make this happen in your website and in the real world. The second part of who a guide is, which is you, is authority, or I'm going to say credibility as well. You've got to prove that you have the expertise and the credibility and the capability to solve the problems that they have. That could be something like, we are certified in this, we have experience in that, we have worked on very similar things for hundreds of people in the past. All those things create some kind of statement of expertise, your capability, and your credibility to solve the problem that you've just empathized with earlier. Again, this will make sense when we go into our brand writer tool a little bit later. Next, you give people a plan. And this is like a process you go through on a website front page, right? A landing page or a home page. What we don't want to do is be ambiguous or vague. We don't want to create any sort of hesitation where people can just go through and do the thing you want them to do. And this is where a lot of founders of startups get it really wrong because they over explain the technology. They over explain the benefits to the point where they just make it so hard to see what to do next or how it can relate to the person they're targeting that it becomes like a technical specification document instead of a sales website, which is exactly what it's meant to be. So the simple 3-step sequence, it clarifies exactly how you do business. How do I work with you? So it could be something like, book an onboarding call with us. It's free and you can book any time in the next 2 weeks. Step 2 can be, we will put together a report and a proposal for you within 24 hours. Step 3 is accept your proposal and book in your start date. That then tells people exactly what the steps are to work with you. It makes it super simple. They don't have to think about what it is. They don't have to figure it. They say, oh, okay, you've already got a plan in place for that. That makes it easy. All I have to do is book the call, right? And then you take care of the rest. That's what you want them thinking. And then have some kind of agreement plan that gives you some guarantees that reassure them before they book that first call that it's going to reduce the risk to them. They're going to feel like, okay, at any point they can sort of drop this if they change their mind and it's going to be okay. Or they're going to do something like, we are wanting to perhaps maybe, if you're not happy, you get your money back, or there's no risk, no contracts, go month to month, all those kind of things, which give someone some kind of reassurance that they're not going to be locked into something that doesn't work for them or they feel like is too risky. Fifth principle is having clear calls to action. We just stay sort of stuck in websites and on social media posts and that unless we get provoked to do something. The whole thing of, if you don't provide a call to action, then no one will take an action. Passive language really fails in this, so we need to be very explicitly direct on our websites, particularly this is where we're saying buy now, schedule a consultation. We make it obvious, we make it unavoidable, we made it unmistakable so that nobody could misunderstand what that next step is going to be. But in amongst all that, we might have, okay, booking the call might be too big a risk because it might cost $150 for them to do that. So maybe what we need is some kind of transitional call to action. It's maybe something that you can give them that's got some value to them that is a very small risk. All they might do is just give their email address to be sent a free PDF or a free tool or something like that. We're doing this at the end of this site. Everyone who registered for this online through Eventbrite gets sent the tool that we've got at the end. That's kind of like a transitional call to action. And then later in that, it's got a full call to action to book paid time with me after that as well. So that's an example of like a direct call to action. It's book me now. Transitional call to action is sending them something. We used to call them lead magnets in the day. So it's something which, get a taste of this and you might want to then book the paid thing that's higher value with us after that. Principle 6 and 7 are about failure and success, where we've got to identify really in what we're writing on the website what failure looks like for them. Because if there's no stakes, if there's no risk, there's no attention, and they don't really need to fix a problem that they don't even realize is there. This is a reminder of the dire consequences of not acting on what you're trying to get them to act on in your website or on your social media. And this has been saying, like, this is what will happen if you don't. Not a threat. It's a reminder of what they already know is already happening in their business, not being addressed. So you'll continue to lose clients, you'll continue to lose your staff, and they'll go to competitors, and you'll continue to fall behind the market. That is the avoiding failure. So that's what we say is do this. Otherwise, these are the things that can happen. But we then offset that with a success statement. And that success statement is painting a very beautiful picture of the customer's transformation and whatever they want to aspirationally be after this process is done. So the customer could be, you'll avoid the, losing customers, all that, and you'll be a place where there's happy customers who are easily onboarded, efficiently dealt with, and you'll have staff who are not dealing with angry customers all the time. So they'll want to stay with you for longer. So you won't be hiring new people on a revolving basis all the time. That's the success statement. So we say, this is what you risk if you don't act. This is the feelings you'll have if you do act and you get that transformation. Now, there's been a bit of an evolution since 2018. We've got all sorts of new tools, AI, lots of social media channels in there as well. So what we've done is you need now not just, this plan for how to do it on a website. You need a comprehensive campaign strategy set out for, today's platforms. You need another 10,000 words that you're going to put across your website to make sure you attract all the right searches, not only on Google, but on AI tools as well. And you'll need case studies that are going to be for you right now. That's what the Building a Story Brand 2.0 update from Donald Miller has. So even if you have read the original book or you've done the audio book, get a new one because it's got a lot more relevant stuff for today's internet, today's world, today's markets, and also today's case studies. I've actually got a free brand script tool at the end of this. So in just a couple of slides time, they'll give you the QR code and address to, so you can go and start this process for yourself. So you don't have to necessarily go and use, the monthly subscription of StoryBrand itself to do that, because it's not cheap. It is a very good tool. It's not cheap, but I've replicated some of the bits and pieces in the way that I know and the way I use it. That's not exactly the same as what they do, but very similar to what they do at the end of this presentation. So let's recap. A clear message is useless unless you have a systematic sales funnel of some kind. So that means you've got to have a one-liner statement at the top of your website. You've got to have your sales pitch going through all those steps we just had from top to bottom of that front page. You need some kind of lead generator or lead magnet. That's that transitional call to action, something where you can give people access to something, whether it's an online guide, whether it's a free training, whether it's a newsletter or something like that, in exchange for their email address. And then you need something in the background that's going to nurture those emails into some kind of conversion to something you're doing. Everybody does this. It is very, very natural. We're very used to it now. It doesn't feel all skeezy and scary now. It's very much a very common thing that we do. What we need to though is get that underway. So using different I use a system called TrueBlue Connect, which connects me through to all those things, which has all the email funnels and all that sort of thing. It also hosts all my websites and forms, so it's all in this one place. But you might even use things like Mailchimp. Active campaign, constant contact. There's so many, Beehive, any of those email funnel creators. ClickFunnels is probably a very expensive and highly unnecessary version of this, but they do this as well. And then you have some kind of sales emails that have very short-term direct calls to action designed to close a deal that have an expiry date on them. So they've got some kind of urgency to call into action right now. So that's the pretty much our recap. What you probably we need to do is look at people who've done this before. Tom's Shoes is a big American online shoe company that's done this. They resolved that whole philosophical problem by making their customers into these global philanthropists. So they didn't just buy shoes, but by buying shoes, they also contributed to a much bigger campaign of helping people everywhere who needed more shoes. People who didn't have the money for shoes, they helped buy the shoes for them. Trek Bicycles, very, very well-known bicycle brand, they dropped all the tech specs and then positioned the bike as the hero's tool for adventure. So the customer was just using the bike as a means to go for adventure. So it's almost like product placing ourselves in the middle of their adventure, but they are the hero. They are the ones having the adventures. They just so happen to use our bikes to do that. So rather than here's tech specs, here's tech specs, here's tech specs, they found out that most of the people who needed these mountain bikes for very immediate things didn't really care about tech specs. They just wanted something which they felt comfortable and confident riding. And The Economist, which is an online magazine and a real life magazine as well, they took their narrative clarity, so being really cool, very, very clear on who they are, what they are, and who they do it for, with a lot of data driven distribution. So to make sure that they were targeting people who were really the kind of people who needed that kind of transformation of having all that kind of economic data and having that data interpreted in such a way that fitted their political or their philosophical positioning in life. The aspirational identity they had was to be educated, to be informed, and to be effective. They made sure that everything in their website that was pointing towards a subscription said that. It actually pointed to that educated, informed, and effective mindset that people wanted to reach as a result of subscribing to The Economist. So some of the pitfalls you might strike as we come to an end, that whole idea that we put ourselves at the center. Oh, quick, we need to make sure our logo's on there. Oh, we need to make sure that our people are on there. Oh, quick, stand in front of a pull-up banner so the logo shows up on the photos. That's kind of, we call it institutional narcissism, and it's the enemy of all this. There's also that enemy of being everything to everyone. No, if you're everything to everyone, you're nothing to anyone. Ambiguous, vague messaging doesn't resonate with anyone. Nobody gets reached with that kind of thing. Also, ignoring the fact that people make emotional decisions to work with you. When you skip that internal problem and the feelings that people have of helplessness and anxiety and frustration, we ignore the emotions and just talk about logic. It just leaves our brand as just another brand that doesn't really understand us and is talking in vagaries and generic ways. When we talk about the emotion, we speak straight to that person's real problem, which isn't actually the problem that is in their business. It's the problem of their feelings, what they're feeling as a result of it. And then really weak calls to action are also a big enemy in this. Contact us doesn't ask for a sale. It doesn't ask for anything apart from contact us. Why would it contact us? Go book us. Message us is a very specific call to action, or buy now. Otherwise, if you just have contact us, it's like, well, what am I contacting you for? I just want to buy. And then people don't follow through and they get lost. People are really that stupid sometimes that they need a very specific call to action in order to do a very specific action that you want. You can continue this journey by going to that address at the bottom of the screen or by scanning that QR code where you'll be able to work on that. I put this together just this morning, gave it a real test run, and I'm going to show you what that looks like here. Here's the brand writer. So it's this, you just go through, fill in your details about who your hero is, the character, the customer, what problems they have, the guide, a bit details about you, all about the plan you want to put in place, the calls to action you're going to have. Also, what the risks are, the stakes. What is the success statement? When you hit generate my brand script, it gives you this report down here. So with all this information, you can take screenshots or you can save this and you can bring it down to your desktop. And then what you can do is then work on creating a campaign based on this. So it takes all that and starts to build a campaign based upon everything you put in from your brand script, which is transferred across, the tone of voice that you want to put in there, and it then lets you choose certain assets. Point to your audience, select the assets, and also then generate what that campaign is going to look like. So this is all stuff that you can start building into your ad campaigns and all that. So I won't go through the whole step. You can do that here. It's completely free. You can access that. It's all generated by, powered by Claude AI. So it's nice and secure, and it's going to help you to put all that stuff into perspective, and it won't cost you anything. So thank you so much for this. I hope you enjoy all that you learned today. Make sure you do click on that link or grab that QR code so you can get through to the brand writer tool that's online at clickstarter.com, learn.clickstarter.com.au/2026/brand writer, and you'll be able to access that. Thank you. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.